Ma'am, shall we start, ma'am?
Yes, yes, I'm
All
ready.
right, all
Fine
right.
with this.
So very good afternoon to you, dear ma'am and dear students. A warm welcome to each and every one of you for this nice, informative session that we are going to hear from Dr. Dolly Thomas. Students, as you're all aware, right from the morning we have been quite engaged with a lot of programs commemorating the Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav, that is 75th year of independence of India. So we have lined up series of events to enable the youth like you to feel the essence of being an Indian, as well as helping ourselves to feel that we are part of this great nation which has a lot of tradition and culture and heritage, and not forgetting that as we progress in our career, that it is this soil that helped us achieve a lot of things in our life. And today morning we had fancy dress competition. We had rural tourism dance folk arts performed by our students, and now we are going to have a very energizing discourse on what is our role as youth for building this nation, and what should be our ideal vision for the year 2040 or 2047. And for this, we have a very vibrant, veteran, distinguished, and an accomplished academician from our state, who is none other than Dr. Dolly Thomas. It's great to hear a lot about Dr. Dolly Thomas. I'll be really excited to let you know as to what all she had accomplished in our life thus far as a teacher. Allow me to do so, please. Dr. Dolly Thomas currently holds the position of being the Associate Professor and Head of the Department of History and Tourism Department, Stella Maris College. Stella Maris College, as such, is a very, very famous college in India and one of the oldest colleges, women colleges in India. Dr. Dolly Thomas has been the faculty of the college's Department of History since June 1996. In June 2001, she became the Associate NCC Officer of Stella Maris, a post she held till June 2012. As NCC officer, she has won a few awards, namely the Commandant's Silver Medal for Best Lady Cadet in 2003, Director General NCC Commendation Medals in 2006 and 2009. Ma'am, we are very proud of you, ma'am. In a very young age, being a lady, you have won all these awards. We are really awed at it. She won an English Proficiency Award during her undergraduate program at Stella Maris. She won a gold medal during her MA History at Madras Christian College. She completed her PhD from Lila College in 2015. Ma'am, you are such a brilliant student, I believe. You have just bagged all the awards as possible. Dr. Dolly is also a member of the examination boards of several colleges like Miraz Christian College, Lila College, Women's Christian College, Etiraj College, Presidency, Queen Mary's College, JBAS, DG Vaishnav College, Tamil Nadu National Open University, and Lady Dog College, Madurai. I'm sure, ma'am, you are international personality. Your presence is felt everywhere across the state. She is also part of the TAN-SCHE and TNPSC exam panel and syllabus development for TAN-SCHE. Ma'am, it's really awe-inspiring. Anyone
Thank you
who
so much.
wants to become a Group A officer of Tamil Nadu cadre, I think they have to go through your question paper, and then you will be the screening committee member, I guess. So it's amazing, ma'am. She's also a member of the board of studies for Queen Mary's College, Madras Christian College, Women's Christian College, JBAS, and Lila College. She has served on the staff selection panel at MCC and JBAS. That's really great, ma'am. She has been on the academic audit team at Lila College and Queen Mary's College in JBAS. She has been a resource person for the students of Davidson College, North Carolina, USA, for their annual semester in India program conducted by Madras Christian College. She is the campus coordinator for Concordia College, New York, and Trinity Western University, Canada. I was just mentioning that ma'am is an international personality, and these statements have proved it very right. She has served as resource person for two guide training organized by IITTM, Ministry of Tourism, and refresher courses for Kendriya Vidyalaya teachers. She has also been invited as chief guest, resource person, judge, and panelist for several intercollegiate and school programs. Very proud of you, ma'am. There are n number of institutions which are taking your assistance and expertise. I'm so fortunate that we also could take your appointment, and we also had the opportunity of having you as our resource person for this very great event. Her book publication include the new Millennium textbook in history for sixth standard students, published by Macmillan in the year 2000. And Madam has also published a chapter in so many other books, especially in the first city of modern India, uh, pertaining to Madras. And the research was on the Madras with 400 years, the land, the people, and their governance. That's amazing to know that, ma'am, you have very much dwelt deep into the very own soil that we are standing, and I'm sure the findings must be quite interesting. She actively contributes to national and international journals. Her research interests are in economic history, human rights, tourism studies, and history of Madras. She was the project leader for a project on heritage and conservation. That was way back in the year 2014-15, and co-project leader for a project on promotion of culture, heritage, and folklore of Tamil Nadu for sustainable development during 2016-18. Both of which were sponsored by UBC HEA. That's amazing, ma'am. To get sponsored projects and funded projects to do is a great, commendable job as an academician, and it's definitely a true contribution to our own society and soil. As part of the second project, she was co author of a monograph titled A Glimpse into the Folklore, Culture, and Heritage of Tamil Nadu 2016. She was elected to attend the UBCHEA sponsored training for leadership in higher education in Asia 2015. That's something to be really appreciated, ma'am. You have went overseas to get yourself trained. In college, she has served in various capacities as staff club coordinator for 3 terms, as faculty advisor of Western Dance Club for 2012 to 2018, college day committees, college magazine editorial team, and as superintendent of exams. In August 2013, Ms. Dolly Thomas took over as head of the Department of History, a position she holds till date. The Department of History offers two programs, that is BA History Tourism and BVOC Tourism and Hospitality. And ma'am is currently heading the programs as well as the department. Ma'am, I think the students and the college is so blessed to have such a nice and well learned, accomplished, and great person like you. I really do not have words to thank you for kindly consenting to be the expert speaker for this particular webinar. On behalf of all my students, faculty team, and principal in charge, a warm welcome to you, ma'am. Thank you very much for kindly consenting to be our resource person. I feel so lucky that my students are here now to listen to you, ma'am. It is not only the students of Stella Maris, this opportunity, I think rightly we have given to students of IHM Chennai as well. Students, we have a great speaker today with us. Please listen to what ma'am is going to offer, and you are free to open up your questions and ideas as well. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Eugene, for those very, very warm words of welcome. And it was quite embarrassing. I think you,
No,
you
no,
just,
not at all, ma'am. We are
thank
very honored to have you, ma'am. We are proud of you.
his words of introduction as well. I'm really honored and happy to be spending this afternoon with you. Respected principal in charge, Mrs. Parimala. I don't know if she is there in the audience because the list is pretty far, I cannot see. Yes. Officials from the Ministry of Tourism and Dr. Eugene, of course, who has been coordinating with me for the conduct of this event, and my dear students. I'm delighted and honored to be here for this national webinar, and I thank you all for this invitation to address. Now,
Thank
for quite some time, I'm sure all of you have been hearing it. No, so our nation has been celebrating the platinum jubilee of our independence under the banner Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. And had it not been for the times that we are living in, the celebrations would have been much grander, much more impactful, very, very vibrant and colorful, with a greater involvement of all the citizens. But till we can get around to doing that, we must take consolation that at least with the help of technology, we are able to have a virtual celebration. And like what Dr. Eugene was saying, I think from the morning, all the students have been very busy watching. I'm sure you all enjoyed the fashion show and the dances that you put up. That brings in so much of life. I'm sure we can get back to doing it all in person, but till we can do that, at least let's enjoy the virtual mode. Now, many of you actually may be wondering, what is all this fuss about Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav, and everyone seems to be doing something or the other with regard to it. The thing is, when you're 18 or 19 years old or in your early 20s, people don't give much importance to what happened 60 years back or 70 years back. And I understand that because I think when I was your age, I also probably felt that way. Because you feel what happened that way back has no relevance to your life. You're only concerned about what is happening now, what may happen in the future. But the fact that I would like to stress on is that there is an interconnectedness in time and space that no one can escape from. What happens in the past has a bearing on the present as well as the future. So just like what all of you all are doing today is definitely going to have an impact on your life in future. So I urge all the youngsters who are listening in today to pay attention to the past. It's very important because that's our legacy. That's our legacy. You have Dr. Eugene was saying how we are having all of this so that you get acquainted with India's culture, and our country has a heritage that is way richer than many other countries that are there. So you have to be aware of our legacy because you need to be inspired by it. And without learning lessons from what our past has been, we really cannot have a vision for the future. So if you have a vision for 2047, there's a lot that you need to know from where we have come. Our past is very, very valid. And just like Winston Churchill rightly said, a country that forgets its past has no future. I'll repeat that again so that all of you hear it. A country that forgets its past has no future. So let us resolve, that we will never make that mistake. We should not forget, okay? Because that is what shapes us and will help us shape the future. I have been asked to speak to you by Dr. Eugene on youth and India at 1940, 2047. So that's like 100 years from the day of independence and like 25 years from now. Basically, it's about having a vision that the youth of the country have to have for the nation's future. So I have titled my talk, I've titled my talk as Learning from the Past, Understanding the Present, and Preparing for the Future. Okay, so that's the crux of what I'm going to really be speaking about. Learning from the past, understanding the present, and preparing for the future. As has been pointed out several times, this is the 75th anniversary of Indian independence, right? So it was a very hard won independence. I'm sure there's no one in the audience today, including me and including Dr. Eugene, and nobody who's part of today's webinar has lived through the freedom struggles. We have not seen any of that. Okay, so maybe we have grandparents at home who can recollect and remember those very difficult decades long. So it was not something that happened in 1 or 2 years. It went on year after year, decade after decade. Okay, so it was a very long, drawn out struggle. But largely, all of us who have been born in independent India tend to take our independence for granted. Okay, this cannot be denied. Okay, so we tend to take our independence for granted, and India's freedom struggle is just another chapter in our history books. I'm sure all of you would had it maybe in your 10th standard history book or your 9th standard. It would have repeated itself, but it's just there, just a chapter in our history books. And this is really unfortunate because as Indians, this particular story, it's okay if we forget other stories, but this particular story of our freedom struggle is something that we really cannot afford to forget. Okay, so it's a story. It's basically, you can call it a saga. A saga of grit, resolve and determination of millions of people. Okay, it's not just a handful of people. In fact, you and me only know the names of those who are famous, big names, right? So we only know that. But the fact is that the contribution to our freedom struggle came from the large majority of people. And the bulk of these people are unknown and unsung heroes. Okay? So they have given in everything what they had to win our freedom at all costs. And there have been huge personal sacrifices, huge tragedies at the human level. Thousands died to win us our freedom. So this, like what I said, is a story that we cannot afford to forget. It is something that we should not take lightly, okay, because taking it lightly would really be, I think, the worst thing that we can do as Indians. Okay, because none of us have had the unfortunate experience of being treated like slaves and second rate human beings. I won't even say second rate citizens. Okay, so during the colonial period, we were treated like slaves and second rate human beings in our own country. None of us have suffered that. So we don't know how it felt. And in fact, none of us have suffered the humiliation and the indignity of being told that you're not you're not fit to govern your own country, you're a barbarian. So we have not experienced that. Okay, so hence we should realize that azadi of freedom really has a great value. Okay, because millions lost their homes, millions lost their lives, and as Indians, we should not have an indifferent or casual attitude towards it. Okay, so the whole of this year, you're going to have a lot of programs as part of Azadi Ki Amrit Mahotsav. And I encourage all the young people who are here today to use this opportunity. Okay, so whenever something comes up, whether it's in the newspaper, whether you're part of a program, or you're reading something up somewhere, or watching something on television, please use the opportunity to delve deeper and to truly appreciate, that very, very momentous period in our nation's history. It's something very, very important and something that each one of us should hold very close to our heart. Okay, now coming to the first part of my talk, that is learning from the past. I told you, we have to learn from the past, only then can we be really prepared for the future. So we need to ponder on how a tiny island nation, which was civilized several centuries after us. Okay, so I'm talking about the United Kingdom or Britain. They were civilized several centuries after us. They were much poorer in wealth and in resources than us. Okay, their population was way, way smaller. Their population was way, way smaller than what we had, okay, or what we have even now. And it was a nation that was 20 times smaller in size than us. Okay? Yet we became subservient to the British. Now, in the 17th century, when the first English trading mission had landed in India, when Thomas Roe and a whole lot of others, they kept coming, they were representing an unknown king. No, they were representing an unknown king who was desperately trying to obtain trade concessions from the world's richest and most powerful monarch or Badshah. That was the Indian Badshah at that time. And despite all this, the British managed to eventually subjugate us and keep us under their thumbs for 200 long years. And we allowed that to happen. So that is something that we really need to understand and appreciate. How did that happen? In every way, we were superior to them, in every way possible. Okay, but in the process, we allowed them to subjugate us for 200 years. So, what is it about the 18th century? This began in the 18th century. So, what was it about the 18th century that precipitated this fall? We fell. We fell. We really lost our position of eminence. We fell. What was it about that period that allowed something so terrible to happen, something so disastrous to happen? Well, we should understand that India at that point of time was a stagnant, it was a decadent society, and we were a house divided. Okay, so, of course, there are a whole list of reasons this happened, but I'm choosing two which I feel are very crucial to what happened. Okay, so the first is we were stagnant. Okay, so in the 18th century, we basically we refused to move ahead with the times. We clung on to outdated ideas. Our mentality was outdated. Our social practices were outdated. Our technology was outdated. Okay, so all of that, eventually resulted us in getting victimized. And the other important thing is we were a house divided. Okay, we were a house divided. So we had like 700 or more kingdoms. In fact, there were times when these numbers were much higher. Numbers kept varying, lower, higher. So, but we were around 700 plus kingdoms. And the life's purpose of most of these kings was how to rise up at the cost of the other. Okay, so their main agenda through their life, apart from, of course, living a very luxurious life and focusing on all their comforts, was how to rise up at the cost of the other. Okay, so the whole period you have conspiracies, you have enmity, you have war. That was the story of the 18th century. So it's a very murky, a very dismal story. Okay, so this teaches us, for us, it teaches a very valuable lesson in life. It tells us that you cannot really progress in life if you're trying to harm and pull down all your neighbors. Yeah, I'll just give you one example. In fact, the history of 17th, 18th century and all is replete. We have enough and more examples of all this happening. I'll just give you one example. Okay, so this is the Zamarin of Calicut. I don't know if any of you have heard of him. The Zamarin of Calicut. Calicut is a place in Kerala. Was in, I would say, in that 16th century, one of the most powerful rulers of that region. Okay, so he was very, very powerful. But when he began to face trouble with the Portuguese traders, okay, so he was facing a lot of trouble. They were making things difficult for him. What was the reaction of all the other neighboring kingdoms? All the other kingdoms around Calicut, what was their reaction? They were thrilled. They were very, very happy. They were so happy that, this king whom they considered as their enemy was in the process of actually losing his power. And they wanted his power destroyed because they thought that as his power is destroyed, they will rise up, right? So they, that's what they thought. But eventually, what happens? Eventually, you have all of them are different. And this happens, I've just given you the story of one small part of India, but this is a story that happens throughout. Okay, so instead of looking at the outsider as the main problem, they looked at their neighbors, at each other as the main problem, and instead of rallying together, if we had rallied together, India's story from the 18th century would have been very, very different. But history is not about ifs and buts, right? It's about what really happened. Now, today you may say we don't have kings and kingdoms, right? We don't have kings and kingdoms, but we have regionalism and we have religionism that keeps us divided. Okay, and this is something each of us really need to ponder about and think. What is this? Now, can India be a successful global leader if we remain as Hindus versus Muslims versus Christians versus Sikhs, etc.? It goes on, right? Or can we continue as Punjabis versus Bengalis versus Tamilians versus I think you're getting the picture, right? Also, if we cling on to such narrow, parochial, internal divisions, what does this make us? It makes us politically very weak, right? And not only is it disastrous for our future, it's disastrous in the present day context itself. And if all of you are aware of what is happening in the country, you may be aware that there are a lot of problems and issues linked to these kind of narrow divisions that we are still holding on to. We should have got rid of this ages back. Why are we clinging on to these, religious and regional divisions? Right? We should not be doing. Now, coming to the second part of my talk, about understanding the present. So, I've spoken about what were the biggest things that brought us under the subjugation of the British. We need to, ensure that something like that does not continue. Coming to the second part of my talk, that is understanding the present. Okay, so the year now is 2022, right? So we are in 2022 and 75 years have passed as an independent nation. So for 75 years, we have been independent. We managed to get the British out. Okay. And 75 years back, so in 1947, we took a pledge. We, not you and me, but our forefathers, they took a pledge that India would shape its own destiny. We need to ask, have we achieved? What have we achieved since then? What is our success story? And is India's story for the past 75 years, can we call it a success story? Okay, so these are questions as educated individuals we need to, ask and keep asking, because only then we will know, it will give us answers as to how we can forge ahead with the times. Okay. Yes, now coming to is our story a success story? Yes, no doubt. India is a phenomenal success as a leading developing country. Okay, so this is something all of you should be proud about. Okay, right? Yes, we can criticize. There are a lot of points of criticism, but there is no doubt about this. Okay, so we have phenomenally succeeded, and when you compare developing countries, we are somewhere right on the top. And in many ways, we are a model political democracy with all the essential freedoms that are enshrined in our constitution. Our democracy has faced numerous challenges. We are still facing a lot of challenges, but we have overcome earlier and we will continue to overcome these. Okay, so these challenges are all part, we just take it in our stride. That's part of how nations progress, so that's something we cannot really eliminate altogether. But we can definitely take pride in the fact that India has come a very, very, very long way since 1947. We are a modern civil society and we have one of the largest economies. The International Monetary Fund had described India as a bright spot in the global landscape. Okay, so that is something very, very, it's a very commendable thing that somebody has said. We've been called as a bright spot in the global landscape. And we are the fourth country in the world to have placed our flag on the moon. Okay. And our space technology also is something very, very commendable. After 2 centuries of colonial exploitation, our economy was at its lowest. It was really in a pathetic state. And even as we were fighting for our independence, even as the freedom movement was all full swing, millions were starving to death in the Bengal famine. And I don't know how many of you have heard, know this, but the 200 year of the British presence, it's almost like a string of famines and droughts and all kind of, I wouldn't even say natural. These were basically man-made calamities only. And even in the decades following, because you have the colonial exploitation had destroyed us so much that even in the decades following independence, we were in a kind of a bad shape. And whenever there was some crisis, we have natural crisis, we had to beg the international community because we were not able to handle it at all. But for several decades now, every now and then there is some natural calamity in India, right? We just don't need to reach out to anybody because we become so self-sufficient in every aspect of our, resources and production and all of that. We don't need to turn anywhere any longer. And in fact, as far as food production is concerned, some of you may be aware that we are the second largest producer of food grains in the world, which is remarkable. Okay, because we are not really the biggest country, but we are the second largest producer of the food grains. And in fact, in recent decades, we have come to the aid and rescue of other countries. I'm sure that feels good, right? So we don't go out with a begging bowl. We are able to reach out and help to other countries which are not doing as well as what we have done. Okay, so this is something that is of great relevance and something that you should take cognizance of. Okay, now in a bid basically to prepare Indians to take on the onerous task of building. See, when we became independent, we said we're going to do it all ourselves. We're not going to ask bringing foreign technicians and foreign brains to work, on our technology. We're going to do it all ourselves. That was, some the responsibility that our founding mothers also had. So you have, because we had this onerous task of building the nation right from 1947, consistent efforts have been made to make education affordable and accessible. And thanks to all the efforts that have been made, we have more than 50,000 colleges across, more in fact. Okay, I have just given you a rough figure, and millions of schools. Now, in 1947, the female literacy was as abysmally low as 2%. Can you believe that? Which means out of 100 girls, only two had managed to get some amount of education. Okay, so that was how low. Now, the national average stands at around 70%. Okay, so in the 75 years, from that 2%, we have brought it to 70%. And in some places, this is the national average. And in some regions, some states, it's almost touching 100%. So we have definitely come a long way. And despite criticisms, the thrust for English language education, every time this comes up, and we find mainly politicians criticizing it, but we find that the English language education has made all of us global citizens. Okay, and I think this is a huge advantage that many countries which did not have that and which insisted that it had to be only in their language, they realized the problems later on. And they are also trying to go in for a global language like English now. But we were able to have the foresight, way back when we got independence to see that this would be an advantage. So along with the vernacular, we also needed to have a global language that would make us global citizens. Okay, and we also, our nation since 1947, the progress in STEM, has been remarkable, amazing. We are almost right on the top. And I think all of you are aware that both medical education and medical treatment is the cheapest and the best in India. Of course, there has been commercialization, no doubt about that. But it is still, if you compare it to the global level, it is still the cheapest and the best. And if you look at living standards, if you look at infrastructure, all of it is a very far cry than what it used to be. 1950s, 1960s. You can ask your grandparents, what was it that, what kind of homes did people live in? What were the things that they had inside their homes? You find that they barely had anything at all. And it was a very subsistence. You just survived from one month to the other. But now I think, life for Indians, especially for the educated Indians, I wouldn't say 100% we have still achieved that, but at least for educated Indians, things are, lifestyles and standards have increased so much beyond than what it used to be. Okay? So as you can see, we as Indians, there is much to be proud of. And the dreams of our founding fathers and mothers of India shaping her own destiny, that was their dream. We had to shape our own destiny. We had to chart out our own development course, as in the path of development. All this has seen fruition. Okay, all of it has come true. But at this juncture, while we are saying that all of this has been achieved, it is also important to look at things that we have not done so. Okay, so if we had to give India a report card, 75 years, how good have you been? I think we need to evaluate it, very critically. Because if we say, oh, everything East and West India is the best and all that, that is okay as a rhetoric, but in order to really progress and grow, we need to take a stock of what is good and also what is bad, right? Otherwise, how can we get better? If we say we are the best, then it means there is nothing better beyond that, right? But honestly, we know we are not the best as yet. We still have, miles to go. We have crossed, miles and miles. Maybe something more, a few more things that we have to achieve. And if we analyze the mistakes or the problems that still continue, at least we'll have a better vision for the future. Okay, so we need to assess what are the things that we as a nation have not been successful. What are the areas that we could have done better after independence? I'm sure if I opened it out to you, you might have some answers, but it's okay, So I personally feel, so what are the things that I feel India could have done better? I feel at the social level. Yes, when it comes to technology and all of that and production and all, okay, we've done a good job. But at the social level, I feel we could have done much better. We could have done much better. The caste system. The caste system, though we have curbed its evils. Okay, so we have curbed the evils of the caste system to an extent, but it's still here, right? It's still present. Okay, and why should a system like this still continue in a modern and in a liberal world? Should it continue? Should not, right? It is not our caste that should matter anymore. It's our character. It's our competencies that should matter in this world. Okay. So maybe the caste system made sense at that point of time, but it has no relevance to the modern world. Okay. Then coming to the scourge of poverty. Okay. India was at this year again a very poor nation when the British left us like that because they drained so much of wealth from our country. Okay. So that has been largely overcome, but we know it's still not 100%, right? So social inequities continue. And even though women have experienced empowerment through education, we know that patriarchal norms still continue and violence and subjugation of women is very much a reality, right? I think you are aware of that. Every other day you pick up a newspaper or you listen to the news on television, there's a lot of violence against women. It continues, and it is shameful that it still continues. Okay, so what I'd like to say at this juncture is that the earlier generation, that is my generation, we have really failed to solve these problems for India. We were aware that these are problems, and it was our vision to solve it. It's not as we were not aware. It was our vision to solve it, but we have failed. We have failed to solve some of these issues that I've just mentioned. And it is my fervent hope that you, all of you, the youth of the nation will eradicate these humanities, at least by 2047. So we have another 25 years. Okay, and I hope we can do it only with you. Okay, so it's possible only with you. Okay, so the previous, normally you have the older generation becomes a little cynical because they're not able to, when you keep trying something and you don't achieve it, you tend to become cynical. But the youth are still filled with the ideals, and it's always those ideals that can take a nation forward. Okay, so hopefully with all of you, all these shameful things, will just be vestiges of the past. Okay. So it is the responsibility of the youth of India to set all these wrongs right. Now, coming to the final part of my talk, the vision for 2047 and preparing for it. Now, India is already a global leader. This is something you should know. Okay, we are already a global leader. We are respected and we are looked up to by the world community. And I have no doubt, there's no doubt that this position will only get stronger and stronger in the years to come. Okay, it's not going to get weaker. Okay, so our global leadership is already known. What you need to understand is that India is one of the very few countries that has a history of non aggression. I'll repeat that India is one of the very few countries that has a history of non aggression. We have never tried to bully or force our opinions on others, unlike most of the big nations. Okay, unlike most of the big nations, and I don't want to name these nations, but you may be aware of these big nations, okay, which always bully, which always try to manipulate. Our missions outside our borders, okay, our missions outside our borders have always been to humanize and never to colonize. Okay, so it has always been to humanize and never to colonize. This is India's moral strength, and the world community acknowledges it. People know, okay, they know about this. So it's something that I'm sure will uh, help us, as we move towards that, greater leadership globally. This is going to really help us. It has been predicted, and I'm sure many of you also who read newspapers and listen to chat shows on television, you will be aware that it has been predicted that India could become the largest economy by 2050. It will be overtaking USA and China, which is slotted for taking that position in another decade or so. But I don't think that this is wishful thinking. It's not that we are trying to brag or just imagine too much for ourselves. Not at all. Because India's growth potential, it compares very favorably with that of most emerging economies. Okay, so we are very well placed to achieve this. And we are well set on the path of developing the next generation technology. Okay, so all of that is very much in place, like artificial intelligence, smart cities. There's a lot of things, a lot of things are happening. And yes, things have become somewhat unhinged because of the pandemic. Things have slowed down. But if, as a nation, if we proceed with foresight, if we proceed with intuition, we will be able to come out of this setback. I see the pandemic as a setback, but it's not going to be a permanent setback. We should be able to come out of this very well. And of course, the icing on the cake, the most important thing is the fact that India happens to be the youngest nation in the world today. Okay, so India is the youngest nation in the world today. 62% of the population is in the working age group. Okay, that is from age 15 to 59. So 62%, and 54% of the total population is below 25 years of age. That is all of you. Okay, so more than half the population are youngsters, who are just 25 or below. And the possibilities that such demographics presents, it's very exciting. Okay, so I think all of you are part of this golden future, very, very golden future. So be excited, be inspired to become your best and your most competent version. If you become your best and most competent version, believe me, the India that is awaiting you has only good things to offer you. Okay, so, but you have got to prepare for it. You've got to be there. You have to ensure that you're the best. Okay, your best possible self. Now, as APJ Abdul Kalam said, citizens have to become partners in the nation's progress. True, it is not the responsibility of just leaders, of civil servants or industrialists. We normally think it's just their responsibility to build the nation. Not at all. When each of us, each one of us resolves to do our best in any task, a lot of tasks I'm sure are entrusted to you. If you do your best at everything that comes your way, India is bound to become the best. Okay, then it won't just be a rhetoric. It will really become the reality. So I hope that all the youth, all of you, who are listening in today, will join in this vision of shaping an India where every citizen lives a life of dignity and worth. Today, I can say that most Indians live a life of dignity and worth, but I don't think we should stop till every Indian, has access to a life of dignity and worth, where every Indian can be empowered through education. And what kind of education? The right education that bridges gap and brings people together, brings people closer, rather than the education that's promoting divisions and perpetuating differences. No, that's a very wrong kind of education, where every mind is without fear and every head is held high. I'm quoting from, one of India's greatest poets, Tagore, right? So this was his vision even before we became independent. And what held good for that time holds good today, yes. We should live in a country where nobody is afraid of anything, right? And you can hold your head up in dignity. I would have a vision for India where, every woman can feel safe wherever they are. So it should not depend on where they are and what time of the day or night it is, wherever they are. Okay? They should feel safe. This is something that we've got to ensure. And I would also want an India where there is more equitable distribution of wealth. When it comes to the holding of private wealth, India is right on the top. It's very, very high. But unfortunately, that wealth is kind of restricted. It's not evenly spread out. I would want that wealth that India has, privately held wealth, to be a little more equitably distributed. Only then can we say, it's like freedom, azadi for every Indian, right? It should not be just for a handful. It has to be for everybody. Okay. And I would also want a place where the poorest of the poor have access to justice and livelihoods, where sustainable practices protect the environment, where every citizen, considers strengthening of the national unity their personal responsibility. Okay, so it's not the prime minister's or the chief minister's job to promote national unity and integration. It's our duty. Each one has to contribute towards that. Okay, and I also want an India. Yeah, I look forward to an India where honest and law abiding politicians remember that their job is to serve the people. Okay, unfortunately, politics, has taken a different color. I wouldn't say now or before. It's been always not too good in our country. So I would want my vision for India by 2047 is that there should be honest and law-abiding politicians, okay, who know what they are there for. They are there for us. We are not there for them. That's something they've got to realize. And most importantly, I would want an India where only our Indianness matters. Okay, our Indianness should be put for first and foremost, not our region, our religion, our color, or our sex. Okay, so this is the India that we've got to aspire towards, where only the fact that we are Indians should matter. And the fact is, we cannot achieve this without you. Okay, so it is only with the youth of the nation, it's only with the youth of the nation that we can achieve all this vision what I spoke about, If by 2047 we've got to get there, it's you. You've got to step up now. Most fighters did their bit. I spoke about how much of sacrifice went into it, right? The freedom fighters did their bit. Now it is our turn, to ensure that the dream of a Sunehra Bharat, that is, a shining India, which should be a nation that upholds and, every Indian, irrespective of caste, creed, religion, region, and any other difference. Now, to quote Cory Booker, patriotism is love of country, but you cannot love your country without loving your countrymen and your countrywomen. We don't always have to agree, but we must empower each other and we must find common ground. We must build bridges across our differences to pursue the common good. So, with this, I would like to thank you all for your patient hearing. Thank you very much. Good luck and Jai Hind.
हटेगा नहीं साला
If there are any questions,
जिसको जो खाने का वो खा लो
Ma'am, I must say your speech was very, very inspiring.
thank you, Dr. Yuji.
Absolutely mind blowing, and at times I felt I was blown with goosebumps. The kind of points that you had very carefully, and you had curated it and you had presented it is something really awesome. I can see that even students, lot of claps for you. A lot of appreciations are there in the board. Thank you so much, ma'am. In fact, 2047, you had very rightly pointed out that Indianness, honesty, law abiding, bridging the gap and finding a common ground to, take India forward is something which is unheard of, which you rightly brought it to the students of Institute of Hotel Management, though they are very few, 100 or so, 120 or so. I think if we all can imbibe these values, I think it could spread and it could have a ripple effect, and they will touch upon several other lives, and the society could be a better one for them, for us, and for the generations to come. I think there could have not been
That's what I
absolutely.
want.
Yes, yes, ma'am. I think there could have not been a better person than Dr. Dolly Thomas for this webinar. You have just been the best speaker, ma'am, and we really admire you for the kind of points that you had shared and for the kind of thoughts that you have instilled on us. And I'm sure all my students would have been richly blessed and benefited through your speech and through your insights that you have given. Once again, ma'am, thank you so much for your time, for your efforts, and for your resources.
Likewise.
Yes, ma'am. We are truly honored, and on behalf of all my students, faculty team, and my principal in charge, Madam Parimala, and behalf of National Council of for Hotel Management and Ministry of Tourism, a heartfelt thanks to you for investing your precious time and for enlightening us, ma'am. We will certainly keep all these things in mind, and we will look forward to having a beautiful and a blissful India, especially for the year 2047. Thank you very much, ma'am, for being part of this webinar. Thank you so much.